welcome back to Sunday Agenda. Well, we're joined now by the WA Liberal Senator Dean Smith, who's been the architect of the private members bill to legislate for same-sex marriage, and that will really be set to dominate the Senate, which is sitting from tomorrow this week. Welcome, Dean Smith, to you.
Good morning to you both.
Now, how confident are you, firstly, of a yes result coming out on Wednesday?
Well, Helen, I think this is the million-dollar question on everyone's minds as we approach Wednesday morning. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautious because we know that the political environment, the electoral environment generally, not just in Australia but around the world, is volatile. So it's dangerous for people to predict things with too great a level of confidence. But I'm optimistic because I've seen the very, very strong and spirited yes campaign. I've seen the human stories. I've heard people talking about their experiences participating in the postal survey over the last few weeks. So I'm cautiously optimistic, very, very proud about the way that the Yes campaign has focused on the real issues here, the human stories, and I think that have been able to build a level of confidence in the community that there's nothing to fear from legislating for same-sex marriage.
Dean Smith, if the yes vote does get up and it's announced on Wednesday, when would your private members bill, when would you expect that to be put up for debate?
Well, over recent days, I've said that I would like the matter dealt with as soon as practically possible, recognising, of course, that senators have their own pet interests. Senators are very, very precious about how the time gets used in the Senate, and the Senate is only sitting for one.
Yeah, the government has said it will be dealt with, and Christopher Pyne has just told us earlier in the program, perhaps as early as this week. Well,
I think the more critical issue, Helen, is that Australians, having participated in the postal survey with a participation rate of almost 80%, I think Australians themselves, irrespective of what parliamentarians might be thinking, Australians themselves would want to see the issue dealt with as expeditiously and as carefully as possible. So I think there should be no delay in bringing forward a bill, bringing forward my bill, if that's possible, and then kicking off the debate and allowing the debate to continue into those two final weeks of the Parliament that sits in late November and early December.
So sorry, are you saying you want it to be brought forward this week, this Senate sitting week?
Absolutely. Most definitely, but of course no senator can act unilaterally, and it will be necessary for me to build confidence to make the case with other senators to bring forward my bill if that's what they want to do. But I think the critical point here is that Australians will not tolerate delay. They have upheld their end of the bargain by participating in such huge numbers in the postal survey. They'll expect the parliamentarians to uphold their side of the bargain.
We know that the Labor Party is favourably disposed towards your bill. How widely in recent weeks have you been canvassing opinion, not just in your own party but in other parties, and how confident are you that your private member's bill is likely to be the foundation for any change here?
Well, the virtues of the bill that I've authored but is already supported by my Liberal colleagues Tim Wilson, Trent Zimmerman, Trevor Evans and Warren Entsch is that it does come out of a Senate committee process that concluded its hearings earlier in the year. That point has been well canvassed. In addition to that, the bill itself, the detail of the bill, has been available to Liberal colleagues since August, has been available more broadly to that. I am pleased that over the course of the campaign, people have been putting their mind to the detail of my bill. Some people have got ideas about how it can be improved. I'm pleased that Labor and Greens and other Liberals have come out to support the bill. I am confident that the architecture that is set out in this private senator's bill will be the architecture for same-sex marriage and, importantly, for protecting religious views about marriage, if marriage is to be legislated in our country and if there is a yes vote. Paul, but that's not to say that there won't be other ideas, amendments or refinements that people will want to bring to the Parliament, and that should be encouraged. But it'll be beholden on individual members and senators, if they bring forward amendments, to find support in the Parliament to get the necessary majority to have those amendments incorporated.
Now, we've had a number of reports that there are quite a range of Conservative Liberal Party MPs who are looking at separate proposals, separate bills in the context of broader guarantees for religious freedom for individuals and for institutions. What's your response to that sort of push from those Conservative Liberals?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that there is a private senator's bill. It's been available. The detail of that bill has been available for 3 months, so it is known. It is supported by 5 Liberals already. Contrast to that is talk of a bill that we've not yet seen, talk of amendments. But again, I'd make this point, Paul, that it's beholden on every member of Parliament, every senator and member of the House of Representatives, if they do hold their convictions closely, if they do want to prosecute arguments around this particular point in issue, I do encourage them to bring forward those amendments. Let's see those amendments. Let's have them debated. Let's put them on the floor of the Senate so this can be done in a careful and considered but also expeditious way. So if there are alternative bills, if there are amendments, I encourage people to see them in the same way that the Greens yesterday said that they would like to flag some amendments. I'm sure that Senator Lionhow will bring some amendments to the floor. So this should be encouraged because this is the virtue, if you like. This goes to the heart of our parliamentary practice.
I can appreciate your point that these amendments or these bills being proposed by the Conservative Liberals are not yet on the public table, but as a matter of principle, I mean, it's fairly clear where they're coming from in terms of seeking protections for religious freedom for individuals and for institutions. In terms of that broad principle, what's your view of that? Do you think this debate should be prosecuted now in this immediate period before Christmas, or do you think it should be prosecuted later? What's your general view?
My general view is that there's a better way to prosecute this, and my general view is as well, and this was demonstrated in the Senate committee report itself, everyone agrees that the broader issue of religious freedom in our country does deserve to be explored. That is very, very clear in the Senate committee report. Where we differ is about how and where that should be done. I disagree that that should be done in the marriage bill. The marriage bill is very, very specific. It is about allowing 2 people access to marriage while at the same time protecting religious views about marriage. But we do have a mechanism in which this broader issue of religious freedom can be discussed, can be canvassed, and legislative propositions can come from it. Now, we have in the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade, chaired already by Kevin Andrews, a freedom of religion and a freedom of religious belief inquiry that has been underway for over a year. There's no reason why that inquiry can't expedite its deliberations so that early in the new year, perhaps by the middle of next year, we can't have a legislative proposition to import, if you like, the broader religious freedom issue into Australian law. Now, I've heard these arguments not just for the last few weeks, but I've heard these arguments ever since the Senate committee inquiry did its deliberations in December of last year and January of this year. I'd argue that the discrimination regime in Australia can import a broader religious freedom argument, and I think that is the most constructive way on which to deal with those issues.
So, Dean Smith, do you think if there are these, whether they be bills or other bills or amendments that seek to broaden the scope to protect more parental rights, to carve out more religious freedoms for a wider group of institutions, do you think that is an attempt to have a genuine argument about that, or is it perhaps an attempt to delay further marriage equality legislation?
I'll be generous, Helen, and give people the benefit of the doubt. The marriage bill does not deal with free speech, does not deal with freedom of religion in the broad, nor does it deal with parental rights, because it is a marriage bill. It is not a parental rights bill. It is not a free speech bill. So I will give people the benefit of the doubt, but I am interested in making sure the parliamentary process is as robust as it possibly can, but there's no reason for this issue not to be dealt with before Christmas.
All right, we've just got a few minutes. Can we move on? I wanted to ask you about the Senate presidency. I mean, this has really been a mess. You've had your Senate president sit there right through the lead up to the High Court. Many people asked very wisely, really, why did he hide it for so long? Anyway, he's gone, and now tomorrow, before you sit even, you have to vote in a new Senate president. Now, you have put yourself up as a candidate. There are other Liberal candidates. Why would Scott Ryan not win, and why do you think you would win in your party room to be the party candidate?
Well, my fellow Liberal senators, because Liberal senators get to nominate a candidate for the presidency, are blessed. There are 4 candidates in the race. I would argue that each of them bring their own unique set of skills. Senator David Fawcett from South Australia, my colleague Senator Scott Ryan, Senator Ian MacDonald, who is one of the most experienced senators in the Senate, if not the most experienced senator, and of course myself. So senators are blessed with a wide range of choice, but we can only choose one. I am most definitely a Senate enthusiast. I do like the idea of promoting the independence of the Senate from executive government. I do think we can be doing more to refine and improve the Senate committee system to make sure it's a more valuable source of information to the Senate's deliberations. And you only have to look at perhaps the 2 most contentious debates we've had in Australia over the last 12 months to understand the central role that the Senate has played in that. The 18C free speech debates started and ended in the Senate. The same-sex marriage debate, we hope, will start in the Senate. So the Senate is continuing to play a very, very important role in Australia's political discourse. I will not be a status quo president. I do think that reform is necessary, but evolutionary reform. But any one of the 4 candidates, I think, will make an exceptional president.
All right, so the logistics of it is that the party room meets and only the Liberal Party, the Nats don't get a vote in who you put up out of those 4 candidates?
That's correct. So the custom is that the Liberal Party, its senators will meet independently of the National Party senators. Often, if not universally, coalition senators usually meet together. Yep. But in this particular circumstance, Liberal senators will meet individually, will ballot amongst themselves for a nominee for the presidency, and that will be put before the Senate, and the Senate will vote, and it'll all be done and dusted by about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. All
right, Dean Smith, Liberal Senator from WA, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Paul.